Hey guys, Dogaholics, thanks for being here today. I've recently bought shares in this company, Redfin. In this video today, I'm going to be talking about why I've done that. However, on top of that, I'm also going to be discussing why I'm kind of measured on this company. So I think that although I'm bullish on this company, I think that there are risks involved with this company. First and foremost, I think that this is kind of a speculative investment. This company has never shown itself to be profitable. However, I can see how there are conditions in the future that it could cause the profitability in this company to change. So I'm going to be kind of breaking down, I think, parts of the business as we go through this video, things I like about them, some thoughts as I have as we go through those, and then kind of how things I think are changing and why ultimately I decided to buy some stock in this company. In my last video, I talked about US existing home sales, how we've gone from a recent and relative high to where we are today at an all-time low when adjusted for population. I talked about why I don't think that these conditions are likely to stay here forever. If you're interested in that, I might put a link somewhere below. You can check that video out. But when we're talking about businesses that are involved in real estate transactions, the volume of sales has a tremendous impact on, well, how much profit you're going to make at the end of the day, right? Or at least how much revenue you're going to make, right? So one way you can think of how this has had a big impact on a lot of these businesses is that we've basically taken a third of the transactions that you would see across the board, and over the span of a couple of years, eliminated a third of those transactions, right? So one of the businesses that has been harmed by this changing macro environment is Redfin. And so if we go and look at Redfin's stock over the past several years, during that time when there was high existing home sales going on, the stock did very well. And after the market crashed, the company and the stock has done tremendously poorly to where we are today, right? But this is a cyclical industry, real estate. And so when we're thinking about investing, when the conditions look poor, and when we start to see that we can see how there could be some light at the end of the tunnel, then this gets to be a interesting proposition in terms of investment. On this channel, I've talked a lot about cyclical businesses and investing. And generally, I'd have to say that when you're thinking about buying one company from another, there's not really a lot that differentiates companies, but except in terms of how much debt they have, how trustworthy the management are, how aligned the incentives are with the management, shareholders, and things like that. But when we're looking at the real estate industry, especially in terms of real estate transactions, there's a whole slew of businesses that derive their income from this industry. And on top of that, within these industries, there's ways that these companies try to differentiate themselves from each other. So when I was looking at investing in this space, it's been a lot more difficult than I would have to say in some other spaces, right? So Redfin, one of the ways that they try to differentiate themselves, first of all, they're a real estate brokerage. That's kind of the core of their business. They're kind of technology based. They're not so, local mom and pop style, but they're more national. And I guess the way that they try to differentiate themselves from a lot of their competition is they market themselves as a discount brokerage. So if you don't know, I guess the way that a traditional brokerage makes money is in terms of commission. So whenever a buyer and a seller get together and those agents are represented through brokerages, they get a commission. And so that commission with that agent is then shared with their brokerage. And usually that rate is around 5 to 6% when a home sale takes place. 3% for a buyer and 3% for a seller. The way that Redfin differentiates, again, is on cost. And they're trying to be an advocate for the consumer and kind of lower these fees. So I think that Redfin gives a rebate for transactions if you're a buyer. So they give a slight discount if you go and buy a home with Redfin. And if you're a seller, they give you a rebate on kind of the buyer side of the commission as well. So instead of like a 6% commission if you're selling a house with Redfin, it's a percentage or two lower. I think it's about 4%, right? So Redfin, the way they differentiate is on primarily on their core business is cost. When I look at the real estate brokerage market out there, it looks very fractured, it looks very local, it looks very inefficient, and it looks rather ripe for disruption. When I look at a 6% commission, especially when I'm thinking about the kind of conditions we have in terms of housing affordability today, a 6% commission for a buyer and a seller to facilitate a sale seems like a lot. Now, if you talk to a lot of real estate agents out there, they would disagree, probably because they derive their income from that. But I think there is a lot of argument for some of their contrivances on why they should get these kinds of commissions. A lot of their argument, or at least I'm not going to speak for everyone out there, but one argument I've seen that's pretty common is that they don't get paid for until they make a sale. So there's a lot an agent has to do. There's a lot of risk they have to take. They may need to show a potential buyer or show a house a bunch of times and they may not make any money, or a deal may fall through, right? So in order to compensate them for that risk, when a transaction takes place, they need to get that kind of a commission, right? 6%, or sorry, 3% for a buyer, 3% for a seller's agent, right? But it seems like, when I look at the technology, I look at a site like Redfin, a lot of the things that this company does can facilitate it, make it so a lot of your time as an agent could be more efficient, right? So on top of that, and when you consider that technology could make it more efficient, this 6% fee seems very high. And again, especially when we're considering housing prices going up and up, as they have over the last couple of years, that 6% commission, it looks rather high, right? Okay, so on my screen, we have a picture taken from Redfin's Q1 financial reports and the slides they attached with them. And this is their real estate services. This is essentially their brokerage business, right? This is the core of their business. The point I did wanted to make showing you guys this slide here is this gross margin, right? So even though I'm saying that I think that this business is ripe for disruption, when we're looking at this gross margin, it's not very high. And when you think about a real estate brokerage, I did a little research on this, and the average kind of regional mom and pop kind of brokerage out there, there's all kinds of businesses, but we'll call it that, a mom and pop brokerage. The average margin, a net margin that they take home is between 10 and 20% nationally, right? And it can vary depending on what kind of auxiliary services they provide besides just their brokerage, right? But when we're thinking about Redfin as a disruptor, that's not a huge margin business that we're trying to disrupt, right? So we're thinking about margins. Well, how does a company like this disrupt a business like that? Well, it would have to do it on volume, right? Because the margins that you're getting per transaction, especially if you're offering a lower fee compared to your competition, well, how are you going to make money? You're going to have to make it more efficient some way, and you're going to have to increase your volume. Now, when we're talking about volume, I guess one way that you could measure that with a company in this space would be in terms of market share. And Redfin has been gaining market share over the years. Recently, it's been a little bit lumpy. So if that market share gain doesn't continue, I would say that there is increased risk with this company. But if we're looking at it on the long term, they have been growing market share. And so we're thinking about volume, we're thinking about transactions per real estate agent, especially with their kind of model where they have employee-based real estate agents. It has the potential that it could do it in terms of volume, right? Okay, but there's also been some things that have changed with Redfin over the past couple of years that if we return to a more profitable environment, they might be able to see more benefit from in this business, right? First of all, one of the things that they did is in 2021 they acquired Rent.com. I don't think that it does has a tremendous amount of synergy with the rest of their business. I guess it does in terms of like an all-in-one kind of, real estate website. But in terms of customers, it's not. I don't think there's a tremendous flywheel in terms of Rent.com, right? But it is a high margin business. I think it's 70% gross margin, and it's about a third of revenue of their brokerage, right? So it's a real business, and Rent.com I think has potential as long as it keeps growing in the company. They acquired another company called Bay Equity Mortgage in 2022, and this company I think does have some synergy with more compared to Rent.com for this company. They can attach mortgages using Bay Equity to some of their transactions. And the rate at which they've been attaching mortgages using this company has been increasing rather quickly. I think in the last couple of years, it went from 20% to 30% attached mortgage per transaction for their company. Yeah, so that is another great change in the company. One thing that is very good that they decided to change is that they decided to get out of the home flipping business. This has been a huge negative drain on the company, and they're not the only one that got involved in this. I think in the easy money schemes that happened in 2021, 2022, Zillow was another one. They tried to get in the home flipping business, and both of them decided that they're losing way too much money. They couldn't do it profitably, and they got out. When I think of side tangent real quick. When I think of home flipping, I've never been involved in it. I think there's two ways that you could make money home flipping. One is that you're buying a rather cheaper property that's, run down in some way where you could fix it up, add value, and then resell it. The other way that I think that you could make money, flipping a house is you buy something, preferably a little bit cheaper, right? And then you wait, right? Because if you look over time in the United States, home prices tend to appreciate, right? So if you're trying to flip houses really quickly, I don't know how they ever got it in their idea that they could, do that profitably. Maybe Redfin could have done it because they can cut out there's a lot of those transaction fees that you would have to, if you're getting involved with brokerages, right? I don't know how Zillow could have ever done it, right? Because they're not a brokerage. But anyway, okay. And one other thing that they're changing is they're kind of changing their business model a little bit. I don't want to get too much into it this video because this will be a 30-minute video if I break down, but they're basically piloting new programs in terms of their commission model with agents. So Redfin Next, I guess the idea is that it's more aligned with some of the incentives with especially high producers in terms of agents in some different areas where they have a high commission. It incentivizes agents who kind of have their own network to stick with a company like Redfin. So these are some of the things that have changed with Redfin, and if we get into a new market, could potentially be good for this business and make it profitable once we get out of the real estate doldrums. Now, one last thing, and this is highly speculative, just like this overall investment, is that there's been some seismic changes taking place in the real estate industry, right? So recently, the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, got sued, and they got sued for this commission model, and they lost. And so the courts have decided that you cannot simply charge a 6% commission. The buyers and sellers need to negotiate their commissions. And so basically the seller, because they're the net, the person receiving the funds in that transaction, they're essentially paying the buyer's agent, and they've never had to negotiate the buyer's agent's salary, right? So there is a huge issue with this and huge backlash, and you can start to see, I think, that sentiment is starting to change in terms of pushback against these fee-based commissions, right? And to kind of show you that, this is just a quick story time from a post that I saw on Reddit called "Don't Pay 6%. If you're selling your home this year and the realtor pressures you into paying 3% to the buyer's agent, fire your agent and go with someone else. You should not have to shell out an additional $20K for someone to negotiate against you. Hell, even paying your own agent $20K for posting pictures of your house online is a ripoff. I've been reading a lot about how realtors are coming with workarounds to circumvent the NAR settlement. Do not fall for it. The house literally sells by itself and should not cost more than $3,500 to sell, let alone $42K in commissions where I live. The NAR was found guilty for collusion, price fixing, steering, conspiracy fraud in a unanimous decision. The current model is an illegal model and set up like a cartel. The DOJ is still lurking as well. So again, what I'm trying to show you with this is I think that there is kind of an awakening in the consumer against these kinds of commissions. I think for a long time, it wasn't very noticeable in terms of commissions because of housing affordability. And on top of that, when you think about, the way that that would get funded, it's getting taken out of a really big sale, or in terms of a buyer, these commissions are kind of getting amortized. Let's say you're getting a loan to buy that house. These commissions don't really feel like a cost until there's something that comes along like this, or there's a condition, I think, in the market where unaffordability gets so bad, the consumer starts to wake up. And I think Redfin has been trying to compete on price for a long time, and the market has never really noticed. And so I think that an event like this and the conditions we're in have the possibility to change the kind of the way a consumer sees a business like Redfin, and therefore increase the volume that we're talking about with transactions in this company, at least over the long run. Okay, normally I would never get involved with a company like Redfin. The pushing point, I guess, the tipping point for me that decided where I should get involved with this company is insider incentives. And especially when I've come in with a lot of these shipping companies and I've looked at insider incentives and how they can, make or break an investment decision in that space. When I look at a company like this and I looked at the incentives in this company, that changed my mind on, not investing versus investing. And so this is 3 salaries that I want to make a point of. This is the CEO of the company. He's been on for 18 years. This is Glenn Kelman, and his compensation is $300,000. And if you think about that, you're like, okay, well, that's a lot of money, right? But if you compare this, Redfin to basically any, comparable real estate company out there, he's getting paid pennies, and so are most of the board of directors. Zillow, not the same kind of business, it's different, but they're getting if you compare it to Zillow, the compensation of these guys in their company, they're getting paid millions of dollars. Even some other similar real estate companies like Compass out there, they're getting paid millions of dollars in terms of compensation, right? The way that the incentives work in this company is that these guys will get bonuses if they are able to get this company into net profitability. At least in terms of Glenn Kelman, I know that. I don't know if that's the case for the other board members. And the other thing that is interesting to me is that this guy owns $9 million, 8.5 of this company, right? So when we compare his compensation directly to the stock price, essentially, he's incentivized to perform well for himself, for the company, and for shareholders, right? And so even though the company may not be going in the right direction now, I know that he's going to do everything in his power to make the company profitable, make the company better, and for both the consumer, the people who work under his banner, and ultimately the shareholder. I know this because if he doesn't make money, right? He makes his paltry $300K. And recently, of that $300K salary, he's put in $200,000, I think, or so in stock, right? So I know that if the company can be successful, this guy and the current management of this company will do everything in their power to do that make it that it can be profitable. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you guys have questions, comments, let me know in the comments below. There was a lot more I wanted to talk about in this video, but I guess my goal on this channel is I don't want to make 30-minute videos anymore. I'm going to try and make them around 10-15 minutes. Um, so I might make another one if there's enough interest in this, because there's a lot more I could talk about. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.